Hello, my name is Asta, and I'm going to teach you how to create a chatbot that can chat with any web page you give it using AI and Python. So, by the end of this tutorial, you will be able to run your Python script and give it any URL from a Wikipedia page to a news article and ask it any questions you would like. For your reference, here is a full script that you can use, but don't worry, we will go step by step and teach you what everything means. So to start off, we are importing our library. We're going to import OS, which will allow interactions with the operating systems, requests that will enable HTTP requests that will actually fetch the data from the website or URL that we give. Then we have Beautiful Soup, which is a library that will navigate the data from the HTML web page that we give. And then lastly, we are going to import OpenAI, which is the OpenAI library to interact with the GPT models. Then we are also going to set up our OpenAI API key. And the quickest way to get this, you can go on to platform.openai.com and log into your OpenAI account. And on the side, it will say API keys. And here you can create a new secret key. Something to know about the secret keys is once you get them generated, you should copy it or paste it right away somewhere. Otherwise, you will need to do the process again and get a new key. It doesn't store it anywhere on your account. That is how we do our initial setup. Next, we're going to get started on the functions. The first function that we will do will be called getText from URL. And this will fetch the HTML content from the URL that we give and extract clean and readable text. So to start off, we are going to be sending the HTTP request by doing request.getURL, and this will retrieve the web page content of the URL that we give. We are also going to be adding error handling for this scenario, and if there's any errors such as connection errors or invalid URLs, will be returned an error message saying that there was an error. Next, to parse the HTML content, we are using Beautiful Soup response.content HTML parser. This will, as the name suggests, will parse the HTML content so it is readable. Next, we want to remove any unnecessary elements such as script and style tags. We're going to do this using .decompose, and this avoids any JavaScript or CSS that may be in the text, so it's easier to read. Continuing on to that, to extract the text, we're also going to separate any new lines that are in the URL and content originally. Continuing on, we also want to strip any white spaces from the lines or any empty lines that may be included, and we'll be doing that by doing line.strip and split lines, and also join the clean lines back together with the new lines. Lastly, to end this function, we are going to write return text, and this will be returning the clean text for the next function. And this function is important because it cleans and structures the text, which will ensure that only actual textual and relevant information is left. Okay, the next function we're writing is going to be summarize content, and this will condense the content to ensure that it fits within the token limits of the language model that we are using, which in our case is going to be the 4.0 mini. So here we are preparing the messages. We are defining a conversation with the assistant to summarize the content. And then we're going to be calling OpenAI's API. And this will be done by doing response is equal to openai.chatCompletion.creates. And here we're going to specify the model that we are using, in this case GPT 4.0 mini, the messages that we have, and then temperature is to control the randomness of the output. Next, we're going to define the summary, which will extract the summary from the API response that it gets, and we're also going to strip any extra white spaces in here and then return the summarized content. In case there's any errors, we will be adding our error handling, and it will print out that there was an error during the summarization. Okay, so now we're going to be doing the next function, which will be ask question about content. And the purpose of this function will be so we can use the language model to answer the user's question based on the provided content of the URL. So similar to the last function, we're going to be preparing the messages, which sets up the conversation for the chatbot we are creating. This includes a system message, defining the roles, user message, and another user message with the question to be answered. Again, similar to the last function, we are going to be calling OpenAI's API the same way and set the temperature to 0.7 so it has a bit more balance between creativity and coherence. We're going to be doing the same the same model in here, and except now instead of the summary we are going to get the answer of the question that is asked. Lastly, in this function we want to have some error handling in case it doesn't work. So we are going to print out error during question processing if anything goes wrong. Now this function is important because it will be allowing the user to interact with the chatbot that we are creating and ask the questions that it needs. Okay, now our last function will be the main function to pull everything together and actually run the chatbot that we are creating. So here the first thing that we want to do is we want to ask the user to input a URL, and here we're going to call our first function get text from URL to actually retrieve the content of the page, and in case it doesn't work it will return that it failed to retrieve the content. Next we want to check if the content is too long. So we're going to set the max tokens to 3,000, but this can be adjusted based on the model you are using. And we're dividing the total count by 4 because one token is roughly 4 characters long. Okay, make sure to watch out for spelling errors. Now, if our content is too long and it exceeds the max tokens, we'll be calling the summarize content function that we created, and we'll check if summarization is successful or not. So next we're going to be adding an interactive loop for the question and answering. And in here, it will inform the user that they can now ask a question, and then after the question is answered, they will be able to either exit or quit. But if they want to ask more questions, then the answer will be given. Now, lastly, to wrap it all up, we are going to be doing the program entry point, and the purpose of this is going to be that it'll ensure the main function runs only when the script is executed directly, not in any other, and not when imported as a module in another script, for example. This is important mostly because it will allow for the Python script. It will allow for clarity and more control over the script. Okay, now the code part is done, and just to go over it once more, how the functions are actually working together is we have our main function that starts the program and handles the user interaction, and then we fetch the content from get text from URL for the specific URL that we will be inputting, and then the content size check will determine how much we need to summarize the content and reduce its length if needed through cleaning and parsing. And then our question answer loop will handle the actual queries. And yeah, with this loop, it will continue until the user decides to exit. And now it's time to run our scripts. Now it's time to test and set up everything we have just done. I start off in my terminal setting up a virtual environment. This will ensure that any dependencies will be managed and we won't run into errors. Now find where you have saved your Python script that we created. And to run it, you can write Python and then the name of the file. Okay, now entering URL. So I'm going to show us two examples. Found this article, and yeah, we're going to enter the URL. Now we can see it's fetching the content from the URL, and now we can ask questions. So I feel like a obvious question, if I don't feel like reading this entire article, give me a 2-sentence summary of this article. And there you have it. There's your 2-sentence summary. Amazon is requiring its corporate staff to return to office, states the week, why the CEO made this decision, etc. Okay, so here you can see I asked what is this crazy thing about this news, and it's telling me what the most surprising aspect is that they're going to return to office, and why this happened. As we wrote earlier in our code, to exit out of this loop, we're going to type in exit, and it will bring us back. I'm going to run my file again, and now I'm going to enter this Wikipedia page about Daft Punk. And here we can ask questions such as, what was their first song? And it tells us about their album that they released, and give me a fun fact about them. Yeah, and then it tells us a fun fact. And there you have it. Thank you for watching and listening. If you have any questions about anything mentioned, please feel free to leave it in the comments. Specific projects relating to AI that you would like to do, or if you want a chatbot made, for example, feel free to schedule a call with us. And yeah, hope to see you in the next one.